Welcome back to Brackets, Bubbles, and Bid Steelers. I am Sam Fetterman. That is Jonathan Lidskin. And we'd like to thank Appalachian State head coach Dustin Kerns for joining us today. Coach, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, man. It's great to be on here talking with you guys. I was going to play a little golf today, but the rain here in the high country of North Carolina has not cooperated, so I'm gonna punt that to a later date. But I'm glad to be on here.
All right, Coach, the first thing I want to ask you is when most people think about App State, they think about obviously the big win over Michigan for the football team back in 2007. But the university has been around a lot longer than that, and it's still kind of risen steadily since that. What can you tell us, people that maybe aren't quite as familiar with the university and the area, what App State is and what it means to that community down there in Boone?
Well, we've got a wonderful place. We've got a wonderful university. We're one of the top 50 public universities in the entire country. We have over 20,000 students. We just started up a Hickory campus because our applications are so high. Boone, North Carolina, Blowing Rock locally, Linville, Banner Elk. If you look at probably the top 10 mountain towns in the United States, with Jackson Hole, Wyoming, or whatever it may be, like you're going to find Boone and those our places in that. It's a destination type place. Certainly during the summer and the fall, and then in the winter you got the ski resorts. But this is a booming university, a booming athletic department. All of our sports are doing really well. Certainly, since you talk about the Michigan win, there's been a transition into the Sun Belt Conference. But all of our sports and facilities and things like that, with the direction of our athletic director Doug Gillen, who was named athletic director of the year a few years ago, like you can really see. But thanks for the improvements with the university, from our leadership, the chancellors, and all that, and now, especially through athletics as well.
And what has changed the most about this school since you got there?
Yeah, I just think the brand just continues to enhance. I think that we've been able to enhance facilities, whether it's on campus, just a simple parking garage, or simple, just dorms. We got brand new dorms, apartment style. We've got, I think when you go on a college campus, when you see construction, that's a good thing. It means the university has money. It means the university is trying to improve things. And who doesn't like to go to a restaurant or a hotel and see it modernized and improved? And that tells you a lot about the brand of that hotel or restaurant or whatever it may be, right? I think the same thing for the university. We've got new dorms right now. We've got new academic buildings being renovated, whether it's cafeteria, parking deck, whatever it may be. I think there's constant mindset of growth and improvement. And then once again, athletic facilities. We've got a new indoor football stadium. We've got a new softball stadium we've got a new track. We've got new tennis courts. Our basketball center is literally right out this window is a new parking deck, 600 spots. So there's just constant improvement in all areas. And I think that's just grown within the community of whether it's restaurants or people moving to this area. This is a great time. Timing is a lot of everything, and the time for App State is now.
Coach, you brought up the Sun Belt and the kind of transition there. A lot of our listeners, with Sam being from New York and me being at Mizzou, a lot of our listeners are not in like the Sun Belt kind of region. What could you tell us about the Sun Belt as a basketball conference that like maybe is unique or maybe like we don't know?
That's a great question, and I think that this is a tremendous league. And so there used to be, I think, 32 Division I conferences, and I think with the Pac-12, I think there's 31 now. And so I think, consistently we rank in the top half of college basketball, and certainly college basketball and college football things are different with the Big East, the Atlantic 10, the Missouri Valley, the WCC, and so there's different competition. But our league is fantastic, just filled with great coaches, great players. I think that our TV package will continue to enhance, and the more people see of Sunbelt basketball, the more and more they're going to get impressed. Obviously, we had a great season last year, but also James Madison had a great season. There's several teams that, had great years. Obviously, James Madison went on and won a game in the NCAA tournament, March Madness, which is great for our league. And so our league is fabulous. And I think that there's no question that Sun Belt basketball is trending upward. I mean, we beat Auburn last year. James Madison beat Michigan State. Arkansas State beat Louisville. I know Troy beat Florida State a couple of years ago. South Alabama's, been good. Southern Miss beat Vanderbilt. Coastal Carolina's got a new coach. Old Dominion has got a great tradition. Marshall, Georgia Southern is trending in the right direction. Always competitive and does a good job. Texas State is had some really good wins and finished in the top of the league. And then you got Louisiana. I mean, Louisiana is traditionally a tremendous program. Coach Marlin, and then they went to the NCAA tournament, took Tennessee to the wire, and so just a tremendous conference. Georgia State trending upward. Georgia State, Coach Hayes they've built a really good roster. They've got a new facility, and so you've got a lot of people, really trying to win, and so I think it's just a conference that just continues to trend upward.
Specifically about James Madison, still relatively new to the league. They obviously had a really good year as an athletic department in football, basketball, and baseball. What's it like having a school like that in the conference that just is so competitive and so well run year in and year out?
Well, yeah, I think that it's really helped the league, but so is Marshall and Old Dominion and Southern Miss, who have been additions. I just think that Southern Miss won the league 2 years ago. Old Dominion's got a bunch of banners up. They've got a new coach, and Marshall, same thing. A lot of tradition there. New coach, and so there's a lot of excitement around Sun Belt basketball. But certainly I just think that you just look at our Sun Belt baseball, 4 teams at large, I think 4th most in NCAA, but not only did they get at large, but they did well. We probably had 2 or 3 more teams on the bubble. So I just think as a league, we've got to find a way. I think football with the ESPN being every week you're going to see a Sun Belt football game on Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night. That has really helped the exposure of the league. And look at Sun Belt football. All our programs do really well in football. But I think you're going to start seeing that in basketball even more. Like I said, with us beating Auburn, James Madison beat Michigan State. Now we're beating kind of premier programs. And so I think without question, the Sun Belt is trending upward in all sports. And I think with the additions of James Madison, Old Dominion, Marshall, Southern Miss to the league, only made our league even better because our league was really, really good before.
Coach, when I watched your team play and when I look at your team's KenPom page, it's striking to me that it kind of resembles on the defensive side what Greg McDermott was doing at Creighton with the low turnover rates, low foul rates, but the very high rates of keeping teams away from the 3-point line and very low effective field goal percentage against. Can you kind of expand on where your defensive philosophy comes from and just maybe explain it a little more elegantly than I can?
Yeah, Sam, I think that I don't know if it's a philosophy as much as just kind of a belief, in the sense of I just believe that to really be good in college basketball, and if you really look back there's not been a team, from my understanding, since 2017 or so that has not won their conference championship, regular season or tournament, that hasn't been in top 5 in their league in defense. And so it's just a belief that to play in the pinnacle of our sport, March Madness, or to win a regular season championship, like it just stats kind of show that you've got to be good on that side of the ball. Now, I love we were really this was the best offensive year we've had, and so I believe in that as well. But I just think that if you're going to be good in college basketball and you're going to win on the road, which you've got to do, like we've all got to play a bunch of road games, right? Like even Michigan is going to play 10 Big Ten road games. Like we've all got to play a lot on the road. Duke's going to play 10 ACC road. My point is, like, to win on the road, I think you got to be good defensively. And so it's just become a belief of ours that we've got to be good there. And once again, I think when you really go back to what is a common trend of teams that make it to March Madness, teams that win the regular season, they're all in the upper half of their league in defensive numbers.
And with Justin absent in the middle last year, it kind of allowed you guys to play a way where you could really make teams challenge him, and teams wouldn't want to challenge him because he's such a great rim protector. So you end up forcing a lot of tough 2-point jump shots. And just can you expand on just how you guys have been great defensively and not just simply being great defensively?
Yeah, I think some of it's recruiting. We've recruited guys with length. Well, we recruited guys with athleticism, recruited guys with great wingspan. But once again, I think it becomes an attitude, it becomes a belief of our program, and it's a team thing. Donovan Gregory was a really good defensive player. Justin Abson, Trayvon Spillers, Xavier Brown. Like those are guys that just kind of stand out. Terrence Arkham became a good defender for us. CJ Huntley. Miles, like we've had guys that have been good defensively, individual defenders, but I think when you put it all together, it becomes of a team mindset and a team kind of mantra that, like, this is what we've got to be good at, and takes a little pride in it, and I think that's that's been something I think just not from last year, but all of our teams here, like. I think in all 5 years here, we've been top 5 in the country in fewest fouls. So it's just not last year's roster. It's been a common theme. And so I think that once again, our coaching staff believes you got to be good defensively. And our coaching staff doesn't like to be scored on easily. So we try to translate into our team that, hey, this is a team defense. And if you can get stops, everybody wants to get out and run. If you can get stops, then you've earned the opportunity to get out and run and go play. And this is the way to do that.
I want to go back a little bit in your career. You spent 2 years at Presbyterian, which you have the only win. I think since they entered Division I, the only season over 14 wins was your 2019 season there. You had a player in Adam Flagler there that was unbelievable his freshman year before being part of a national championship team at Baylor. But can you tell me what you kind of expected taking your first head coaching job at Presbyterian, and then what lessons and what you learned there that you could take to App State with you?
Well, I'm forever grateful to PC, and I really believe that that'll change at some point. The Coach Farrell or who's there now, played there, and cheering for him to do well. He's done a good to me last year. They beat Vanderbilt. They really got off to a good start. Just think college basketball it's just hard, and the Big South is a really competitive league. And so, what I was able to learn there is, I'm forever grateful to PC. Their athletic director, Dee Nichols, still, a great friend. And I think that I'm forever grateful in the sense, like, as a quote, new head coach, a young head coach, I was able to go there and really kind of have some trial and error. I didn't have the pressure to, win at a high rate because of, and the expectations. And so the end of the day, that was a really good thing for me, and in the sense of like being able to make some mistakes and as a young coach and try some things out. And had a wonderful 2 years there, and for forever a Blue Hose, and certainly cheering for their success. And um, we were able to play a little different. I think the Big South is another tremendous conference, great coaches, great players. I think it's really underrated sometimes. Um, but very, very fortunate that App State called, and going on year 6 here, and was able to sign an extension this year, and done that a couple times now. And so we've won 5 years here. We've won a tournament championship, a regular season championship. We've been able to really feel like elevate the program.
Coach, you mentioned how you beat Auburn last year, and you played them at your place. Just how does that game come about? What's your relationship with Coach Pearl, and how grateful are you for the ability to host them and show and kind of just play a marquee game against a really good high major opponent at home?
Yeah, I give all that credit to Coach Pearl. Okay, if you look at his career, he's consistently done that. And I think that his philosophy on it is he really wants, before he gets the SEC play, that he even did it when he was at Tennessee and he was a mid-major coach in Milwaukee, and he felt like that he would kind of pay back when he was able to get to that level. And so at Tennessee he did it. At Auburn now he's done it now, and I think that he's done it with several schools, and he really wants to put his team in a really hostile, true road game environment, that non-conference. So when they get the league play, it's not a shock to them. And I think sometimes, we all coaches have different philosophies on scheduling, recruiting, style of play. Some programs won't play a true road game until January, and that's their philosophy, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think his philosophy is different, and I give him all the credit for. We've got to go there. We've already been to Auburn once. We've got to go again in the future here. And so they've been a premier program nationally, coming off a Final Four a few years ago. And so getting a program like that to come to App State just continue to elevate our program. Fortunate we were able to get it on ESPN2, and fortunate we were able to win. But, our arena that day was electric. Our fans, our students were incredible, and they helped us raise our level, and they helped hurt our opponent, Auburn, right? And so I think that just said a lot about where our program is heading to be able to get a program like that to come to App State.
Sam, do you want to go next?
Yeah, so you coached at Wofford under Coach Mike Young, now at Virginia Tech, and he had a great career at Wofford. He's done some good things at Virginia Tech, but what might we, as the general college basketball fan base, not know about Coach Young, and what are the most important things that you learned from him?
Yeah, I learned a lot from him. I spent 7 years with him. Obviously he's a tremendous basketball coach, and I think that's the way I would describe him. The guy just knows basketball, and he knows how to take a group of people and eliminate entitlement, and to get them playing basketball the quote right way, sharing the ball, making sacrifices for the team, making the right play when it needs to be made, playing really unselfish. And so I learned a ton from him. I think that, what someone in the college basketball, might not quote know is, I just think that, and this is a compliment, I just think he's a normal guy, right? Like, he's going to treat people the right way. He's going to know the name of the custodians at Virginia Tech. He's going to call them by name. He's going to know the people in the cafeteria. Like, he's just a normal guy and can relate to anybody. And he can go in any living room and in all walks of life. And because he's normal, and he's a good guy. And like I said, I say normal in a complimentary way. He just doesn't, I think he takes his job serious. He doesn't take himself serious, and he's able to relate to people in all walks of life, and truly has a desire to help young people.
So I guess
Coach,
the next thing I
obviously
really
you
want.
guys had the coach. You guys had the benefit of a lot of players coming back last season and a lot of continuity, but you still use the portal to add guys like Miles Tate and just. We talked with Coach Mike Magpio at UC Riverside just about the life of a coach working through the transfer portal. How has the transfer portal changed the way that you build your rosters, and how has it changed the way you view the sport on the whole?
Yeah, I think that as coaches, we adapt, right? Like we adapt to rule changes. The 3-point line has gone back. The time, like things have adapt with the game, the rules, right? So with how you build a roster, is that there's changes of that too, and we adapt, and so I think there's a lot of positives with this, and so but we're still going to build our roster the same way we've always built it. We're trying to get really quality character people that understand they're part of a team, that are competitive, that are humble, and that work hard, that love the game. And and that's not going to, change from how we like to develop players and, have player development stuff, in the sense of like, we still value player development. So we're still, want to sign high school kids and develop them. And I think there's got to be a healthy balance there. But yeah, we're going to, sometimes we're going to retain a lot of guys. Sometimes they're going to, I think when you have success now, it creates opportunities for players. There's nothing wrong with that. But we've also still been able to graduate. We've also still been able to, get guys to come back, and so we certainly wish the guys that have moved on nothing but the best, absolutely, because that's their opportunity now, and everybody's got different reasons. And I think it happens at all levels. It happens in the NBA. It happens in, so it's just something that I think all of us coaches will continue to adapt. But at the end of the day, we're still going to build the roster the same way. It's not going to be all portal. It's not going to be all high school. It's going to be a combination of junior college, high school, and transfer portal. It's just all about fit.
Coach, last thing I have for you, coming off the year that you guys had winning the regular season title, and then with all the roster turnover that you guys had this offseason, what are you excited about next year in terms of both the team and the future of the program?
Yeah, I'm just, I just like the people we've signed. I think we've got some really good returners back with Miles Tate and CJ Huntley. And then I think that, Luke Wilson's a guy that redshirts. Once again, we pride ourselves on development, but we've been able to get the 3 transfers we've signed have all started Division I basketball. We signed 2 junior college kids that, were really good players nationally, but also were on really successful teams. One, helped his team go to the national championship game. We signed high school kids that won state championships. And so I'm just excited about, the character of the people and guys that, really have aligned with our values.
Thank you so much, Coach Kerns, and we wish you the best of luck going forward this season at App State. And thank you all for joining us and listening to this episode of Brackets, Bubbles, and Bid Stealers.
It's great to be on here. Brackets, Bubbles, and Bid Stealers is awesome. Thanks for what y'all do to grow the game of basketball. And really appreciate you guys having me on, and honored.
Of course. Thank you so much.
Of course. Thanks, Coach.
Thanks so much. Go Mountaineers, take the stairs.
Season 5, episode 6 of Brackets, Bubbles, and Bid Stealers. A critically acclaimed, awesome podcast, according to multiple college basketball Division I head coaches. That's, by the way, going in the website pretty soon. We're going to
absolutely.
We're going to say Dustin Kerns called the podcast. Actually, that might be in the bio tomorrow.
Do we have room for it?
Hell, I'd take everything else out just to put that in.
Dude.
Dustin Kerns called our podcast awesome. Like, what else?
Wait, did we when did you take out the #1 Tony Fatellis fan podcast?
A while ago when I put Pat in the dial, but we got to take Pat out.
Okay.
Here, I'm gonna change it right now. It's going to say a college basketball podcast hosted by Sam Fetterman and Jonathan Litzkin. An awesome college basketball podcast according to Dustin Kerns as host. Never mind. Hold on.
I think this is the first time that one of us has changed an account since on the show since I had to make my profile Johnny Furphy.
Dustin Kerns called our podcast awesome. Hosted by at Sam Fetterman and at Jonathan Lidskin. So, Jonathan, you want to talk about what happened before we talked to Dustin Kerns?
Oh, how he the random connection with my dad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I won't go too specific into it, but basically, like, my dad's coached basketball for a very long time. He knows a lot of random people.
I think a lot of people that listen to this podcast consistently know that.
Yeah. But he, right before we started recording, we were just talking to him, and he kind of recognized my last name. And turns out him and my dad first connected when Dustin was back at Wofford as an
calling him
coach.
Dustin now, calling him by his first name.
I guess Coach Kerns, Dustin. I don't know. Some coaches are okay.
Some coaches are first name coaches. Some coaches
name.
are not. Like Mike Magpio is Mags. Like that's like as close to a first name coach as we've had on the show.
Listen, I think that like if you know a coach well enough and like spend enough time around him, like whether that's covering.
Oh yeah, no, I'll call Tobin Anderson Tobin to his face.
Yeah.
Dan Engelstad. I'll call him
but like
Dan.
if especially in a formal setting, if they want to be referred to as coach, like they have.
Yeah, no, I
earned
almost like the coach of our summer ball team up here. I never go up to him and say, "Hey Keith" or "Hey Griff." I'll say, "Coach."
Yeah, if they want that, they've earned that. And I remember last summer, like that was a problem.
Hell,
and,
you earn it when you're the head coach of the 4th grade B team.
Damn right I do. I remember last summer, like
coaches.
I remember last summer. By the way, real quick,
coaches.
Dude, you suck. I wanted to shame Dion real quick, and you just interrupted.
Okay, shame Dion.
I remember last summer he like stormed out of a press conference because like one of the reporters called him Dion and not Coach Prime, which is a little excessive, but you know.
I mean, I call him Coach. If he wants to be called Coach Prime, though, he should make that known.
I don't really feel like a grown man storming out of a press conference over that is.
Oh, it's dumb. It's dumb. I think a lot of things that Deion Sanders has done is dumb. I won't call him Coach Prime. He's Coach Sanders, Coach Deion, or Deion Sanders. Or Primetime. He could be Primetime. But Coach Prime is a nickname he gave himself.
All right. We ready to discuss basketball coaches now?
Why wasn't Mike Magpio on your list?
I just don't. I mean, I don't know.
No, he's not on the list. I get it.
Like the pretty simple answer is there's a lot more than 60 great coaches in the country.
Yeah, no, there's a ton of great coaches. I'm just saying I like Mike Magpio a lot.
I like him a lot too. He was
all right. We've got about an hour to go through 50 coaches because my basketball team is going to win a championship pretty soon.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not watching this live, the Celtics are going to play tonight against the Mavs. It's 3-0 in the series. Anyway, number one, the best coach in the country is a guy that the Lakers wanted and can't have. That would be Dan Hurley. Well, it's your list. Why don't you intro every coach?
Okay, so I get to be on the left today. Awesome. Okay, so Dan Hurley is number one. He has obviously earned that back-to-back national titles. Has, at minimum, done a great job recruiting, hiring a staff, and like getting that staff in himself to develop these players. Like there's no argument. There shouldn't be any arguments about this.
Dan
they're
Hurley is not only the best coach in the country right now, he is the most sought after name in basketball coaching at the moment.
Mhm.
The Lakers wanted to hire him. They waited until the NBA finals were starting to make this a thing. Like they were waiting a long time for this. They were waiting for the right moment to go after him and say, all right, there's no other jobs available at this point. We are going to make it known that we want Dan Hurley. And Dan Hurley's going to make it known that we want Dan Hurley. And yet Dan Hurley says, no, I'm going to stay in Storrs, Connecticut. Well, he lives in Glastonbury with the best staff in the country. With
Do we know how
Kamani
close
Young.
that like actually got?
I don't think it ever got all that close.
No, I think it was just something that like
I saw an article. I saw a
considered.
quote from I saw a quote from an article that when Hurley was in LA, he went down to the gym at his hotel to do cardio. He's in the hotel. He says someone getting off the treadmill. The person says, "You're not really doing this, right?" It was a UConn law student or med student. That's like, I'm out here for a wedding. You're not really doing this, right? Like, you're not actually coming here. You got to stay. There's no way he can leave after that.
That's awesome.
I think Dan Hurley is not just the best coach in college basketball. He exemplifies what it means to be a leader right now in sports, because he knows what types of kids to bring into programs. He brings in tough, hard-nosed kids who will die for their coaches, and he will die for his players. He's not I don't think he's the genius behind everything. I think he's the genius behind a lot, but this team wasn't truly great until Luke Murray came in. And his teams at Rhode and I don't think his teams were truly as great as they really could have been until Tom Moore came in when at Rhode Island. I think that Tom Moore helped elevate, and then Luke Murray helped elevate again. Dan Hurley, though, knows how to put the most successful people around him and knows to listen to the right people, whether it's players, coaches, anything. And he's also a basketball genius. Like, he's not like, I don't think he's like Josh Schertz level wizard. Like, Josh Schertz might just be the best X's and O's wizard out there right now.
Luke Murray might be.
Yeah, no, it might be Luke Murray. Like, Josh Schertz is up there as an X's and O's wizard. Obviously, Bill Self is an X's and O's wizard. There's a lot of X's and O's wizards. Dan Hurley might be the best at just everything. He might just, and he's a really good X's and O's coach. He's great at
I think that
he's great at getting the right people in the right room together and thinking the same way, and then figuring out what every single person is best at and having that person do what they are best at.
I don't know if there's another
He's also
podcast.
An absolute sicko of a human being. Like, I don't think there is anybody in the sport that was more tailored to coach all right, let me say this. I don't know if there's a human being on planet Earth that was built more specifically to do a certain job, maybe other than LeBron James to be the greatest basketball player ever, or whatever you think. Or
No,
one
you're
of
right.
the greatest.
You're right.
No, yeah, but like, he's obviously a 6'8", 250-pound freakazoid. Like, in terms of mental makeup, there might not be somebody more specifically tailored to their specific job than Dan Hurley to be the UConn Huskies men's basketball coach.
Yeah, I think to be as good as that.
He is a Northeast guy through and through. He embodies everything that people love and everything that people hate about UConn to a T. And yet he's still not the best coach in UConn basketball history. Like, Jim Calhoun is the best coach in UConn basketball history, in UConn men's basketball history. Dan Hurley is the third best coach in UConn basketball history. Gino Auriemma is the best coach in UConn basketball history. And I don't think Dan Hurley's going to pass Gino Auriemma at all, ever. No chance.
Gino, how many titles did Gino have?
He's still coaching. He has 11. He just got an extension, a 5-year extension.
How many did Calhoun have?
3.
3.
3, but they were also finishing last in the Big East every year before he got there.
What was the third year? Because it was 04.
99, 04, and 11.
Okay, 99. Okay.
They beat Duke
yeah,
in 99.
Huh?
They beat Duke in 99.
Yeah, they did. I think the thing about Dan Hurley is to be as good as he is, you have to be obsessed with like every aspect of basketball.
Yes.
Like I remember reading yesterday that like he got asked like what he's excited about, like to do, what he's excited to do in the off season, and like most coaches would say like go on vacation and go play golf, and he's just like, yeah, I'm excited to go recruit. Like he lives for the game of basketball.
And I think that also says how much he truly loves his players, that he just wants to find more players that he can love and become family with. Because I don't think there's any other program in the country right now with a culture as strong as UConn. Because the guys that Dan Hurley is bringing in are just, he's bringing in program guys that are also NBA players. And they're coached by the best coaching staff in the sport in a place with a great fan base and a great history. It's a blue blood that is still, I'd argue, like in a total vacuum, a harder job than the other blue bloods. Because, I mean, there's just simply, it's a blue collar blue blood compared to a Kentucky, which kind of has been doing it for so much longer, or Kansas. And like, there's not as much name brand recognition as a Duke or a Carolina. I still think Duke is the biggest brand in the sport, even though Kentucky has the most passionate Kentucky has the most passionate like local fan base. Kansas has the best arena, and Duke has the biggest brand, and then North Carolina is like a combination of the three.
Yeah, North Carolina,
and obviously Kansas also has a tremendous fan base locally, and it's not like they don't have an incredible, and it's not like those other places don't have. Like I think Kentucky has the most insane fan base, like based on just sheer numbers and how much they care about basketball. Kansas has the best, atmosphere in college basketball.
Yeah,
and probably like maybe not the best history, but like a history that has a deeper connection further back. Speaking of Kansas, Jonathan.
Yeah, Bill Self, the guy chasing Coach K, but probably will not end up getting that.
No, I don't think anybody in college basketball right now will reach Coach K's level. I don't think Coach K is the best coach ever. I think John Wooden is the best coach ever.
Sure.
I don't think you can really if you want to debate that, fine, but I think the fact of the matter that UCLA. Hold on, what just happened?
Everything good? I can talk about.
Yeah, no, I'm good. I think.
Yeah, I mean, Bill
Verdugo just hit a home run. That's what happened.
Okay.
Against the Red Sox at Fenway.
Bill Self probably had.
Bill Self. I think John Wooden's the best coach in college basketball history. But, all right, the best active coaching in terms of college basketball history is Rick Pitino. Number 2 is Bill Self.
Yeah, I mean, Bill Self probably had his worst year at Kansas, and it resulted in a 4 seed, and that probably should tell you all you need to know.
No coach is more consistent in college basketball at building great teams than Bill Self. And people took this really, really, really badly when he said it. But when they lost to Gonzaga, he was like, "Oh, I've been thinking about next year for a month." You know why?
Because his team
sucked, and he knew it.
Mm-hmm.
He knew it before most Kansas fans knew it.
Like
And
he,
he knew that he was going to build a team for this coming season that masked every flaw they had this past year. They
Mhm.
bring back DeJuan Harris. They bring back Hunter Dickinson. They bring back KJ Adams. Those are 3 all Big 12 players.
Mhm.
Okay, you lose Johnny Furphy and Kevin McCullough. Kevin McCullough was the best player on that team. You lose Marco Jackson to injury, but you bring in Zeke Mayo, AJ Storr, Rylan
Right,
Griffin,
Alan Griffin.
um, the Mississippi State Shaquille Moore,
Yeah,
just a
Com-
plethora.
and that's not
Can't forget Flory.
and Raquise Passmore.
Yeah, and they were gonna bring in LeBaron Philon too.
Mhm. And they still have Jamari McDowell. They still have Zach Clemens, who I don't know how he's still at Kansas, but
They're gonna go 9 deep next year.
yeah, I think
with,
they
with the ability to play 3 different legit dudes at the 5 in Hunter, KJ, and Flory. And then KJ and Storr can play the 4. Storr, Passmore, Griffin, Mayo can all play the. Mayo's more of a 1-2, but they've basically 3 guys that can play at every position.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean they had one guy that could play point last year,
And now they have 3. And AJ Storr can be a ball handler. Now, I don't think Shaquille Moore will be a good point guard. I think he's more of a defensive combo for them. But I think the ability to analyze the flaws of the team and use the resources that program has, which are incredible, to build a team this year that just will not have any of those flaws is really good.
All right, number 3, Kelvin Sampson. This is now 2 straight years of 1 seeds for Houston. Won the Big 12 regular season last year. Maybe would have reached the Final Four had Jamal Shed not gotten hurt, but this is now the last 4 years, and you could argue even further back to like 6 years, 7 years. Houston has been maybe the most consistent program in the country, not named Kansas, not named Gonzaga. Like this is
They went 33-4 in 2023. Moved up to the toughest conference in college basketball. Lost an All-American and went 32-5 and won the league by 2 games.
Mm-hmm.
They had 3 regular season losses. They lost on the road against Iowa State by like 1 possession. They lost on the road to TCU they lost by 4 to Iowa State. They lost by 1 at TCU when TCU shot 8 for 15 from 3. And they lost on the road to Kansas when Kansas had a healthy Kevin McCullough at Allen Fieldhouse. Who wins at Allen Fieldhouse?
Mark Pope.
That was also, by the way, just incredible game plan by Bill Self in that game. That game proved why Bill Self is still better than Kelvin Sampson.
Mm-hmm.
Even though, yes, Houston destroyed Kansas by 30 the next time they played. That was a Kansas team that was unbelievably hobbled, and they were dead at that point in time. Like, I don't really believe that Kansas team by March was anything close to the Kansas team that we can call the Kansas team. I don't think there was anything Self could have done in that game to make it close.
Correct. All right. Anything else on Kelvin Sampson?
We talked about it a lot last year. Just best guy in the sport at instilling that culture of defense
and rebounding.
Yeah, I mean, there's guys like Shaheen Holloway who do it really well, for sure. But they all aspire to have practices run the way that Kelvin Sampson runs his practices.
Yeah. There's a reason that people always say that Houston's a nightmare to play against. With
Number
that being
4.
said, Matt Painter at number 4, coming off a national championship appearance, back-to-back 1 seeds for Purdue, and he's just been like, you talk about like one of the best X's and O's in the sport. Like Matt Painter is right up there with the best.
You know who Matt Painter's resume at Purdue like kind of reminds me of?
Tony Bennett at Virginia?
No, Lisa Bluter at Iowa. In the sense that really, really good for a long time, but no one really noticed it until a generational college basketball player came along and took them to heights never before seen in program history.
Yep.
And I think it also kind of shows that Painter's coaching scales up. Like this year, it really scaled up because they developed. I think last year it didn't. I think he became a much better coach when he realized that when he realized the best ways to use his guards this year. And I felt they were much more comfortable. How much of that is freshmen becoming sophomores? It's a lot, but I also think Matt Painter was significantly better at adapting this year than last year. They had different game plans. It wasn't just feed Edie. Now it was a lot of feed Edie, but they were 13th in effective field goal percentage this year. They were 102nd the year before.
I also think that if you go back and look at the season 2 years ago, yeah, they shouldn't have lost to FDU. Yeah, they like struggled a little bit down the stretch. But like early in the season, they were punching way above their weight. And like I think that is a lot of that's Painter. Like if you go back and like tell someone 2 off seasons ago that like Braden Smith, who's like a low 4-star freshman, and like Fletcher Lawyer, who's another like low 4-star freshman, like those are going to be your guard options. Like I don't think anyone would have had Purdue even close to a 1 seed.
I agree. My next thing about, by the way, just to stress, this is Jonathan's list. It's not mine. I have different opinions. I would not have Painter at number 4.
I get the heat for this.
I think he's definitely in the top tier of coaches, like top 8. But I think I would have maybe a few other names. Maybe the guy that you have at number 5. Maybe the guy that you have at number 8. I might have Painter as number 8. I think you could argue him anywhere from 4 to 8. That's kind of what I think. Number 5.
Nate Oates at Alabama. He is coming off a Final Four appearance, which we've talked extensively about how it's so weird that the Nate Oates team that gets the Final Four, but it shows that he can win even when when his teams aren't like exactly what he wants them to be in Final form. Like
I also just think that he did he constructed the roster differently. Like they were chucking threes. They've been chucking threes since he got there. Mm-hmm. But this was the first time they ever finished in the top 90 in 3-point percentage. Like, and I think that's something people might be forgetting when they rank Alabama number 1 next year. That I think that they were shooting above their weight last year, just for in general. Mm-hmm. But I still think they're going to be really good. The development for Mark Sears was awesome. Grant Nelson, I doubted him a lot of last year, but by the end of the season, he made me look silly. I think he was really good in the tournament against North Carolina. He was really good against UConn. He was effective against Clemson as well in different ways. Even though he was pretty ineffective in those first 2 games, I think he scaled up pretty well.
By the way, just to clarify, expectations for next season have like nothing to do with these rankings.
Agreed. Yeah. I like Nate Oates. I think he's a great coach. I think someday he could be an NBA coach. Just thinking about how forward thinking he is. Some forward thinking NBA franchise is gonna want him. I think if like the Monty Williams thing doesn't work out for the Pistons long term, that could be a homecoming for Oates. If because the buyout is going to go down as the contract goes deeper in for Oates. It's too expensive now for anybody to buy him out because he just signed the extension. But in 3 years or so, I think that might be something the Pistons end up looking at, something some other franchises will end up looking at. I think Oates will be a really great coach wherever he is. But that's not an insult to Alabama saying that I think he can be an NBA coach someday. I'm not saying I think he'll take it. I think he'll be courted for sure at some point, just the way that he thinks.
Yeah. He's also like, and I'll mention this when Bruce Pearl comes up too, but like, I mean, he's made Alabama basketball important. Like, he's made people care about Alabama basketball.
All right. Want to move on? 6 and 7 talk about together.
6 and 7 together. Okay.
Yeah.
So 6 and 7.
I feel like these two could be 3 and 4. These two could be 7 and 8.
6 and 7, two guys that met in the national title game back in 2021. 6, Mark Few. 7, Scott Drew. I'll start with Mark Few here. This is 8 straight Sweet 16s now for Gonzaga?
A lot of straight.
I think the streak goes back to 2015, I want to say. So maybe, I think it's 2015. So 8 straight for Mark Few at Gonzaga. He has taken a school in northwest corner of the country in Spokane, Washington, with a budget that is not nearly as big as.
Oh, it's gotten big. It's
gotten bigger, but it's still not nearly what like
because of him.
Yeah, he has taken a small Jesuit school, right?
Yes.
In Spokane, Washington, and made it one of the best programs in all of college basketball. And he continues, even though like people will always knock him for not having a national title, but his NCAA tournament resume is one of the best in the sport, even without the national title.
Gonzaga had never made an NCAA tournament until 1995. They made the NCAA tournament again in 1999, and they haven't missed it since.
Yeah. Like, they're just always good. Like,
now that job has become easier through the years because of how good Few has done there. And they have, I think, left a little to be desired the last 2 years in terms of just putting together. I just think the last 2 years have been a little bit worse Gonzaga teams than what we've come to expect. But they still made the Sweet 16 both years. And that's why down years are Sweet 16s is why Mark Few is a top 8 without a doubt, and maybe even higher coach in the country.
And then Scott Drew at 7. 3 years ago, I think you could have pretty easily argued, even 2 years ago, you could have argued that Scott Drew was the best coach in the sport. But since the national title, like, does he have a conference title since 2021 when they won the NCAA title?
They tied for the Big 12 title in 22.
Okay. And then, but NCAA tournament success has been hard to come by.
My one kind of concern-ish about Drew is that defenses have ranked 107 and 72 since Jerome Tang left.
Mm-hmm.
And he's losing more assistants now with Jacobs gone.
Jacobs at FAU,
Alvin Brooks.
Where did
I still
Alvin
think
Brooks go?
Kentucky.
Okay, yeah, right.
I still think Scott Drew is an awesome coach, and he's a top 8 coach. But I don't think, and I think Kentucky would have been very lucky to have him if they hired him because they wanted to, and he said no. And I think it was a good decision for him
I think,
because
yeah,
Baylor's going to be really good again next year, and he's built that program. They have big NIL now, but I'm not sure. Like, it's really tough to get back to being a national champion, and I'm not saying I'm concerned. I just don't think I have as much. If you ask me who wins the national championship next, Drew or Few, I would be a little more confident in Few. But then again, what would I know?
Okay, so if you're gonna tier off these rankings, between 7 and 8 is probably where I would start the second tier.
No, the tier starts after 8.
Enough.
No.
Okay, so you know what?
The
Okay,
tier starts after 8.
Eight's TJ Otzelberger. Sam, you go.
TJ Otzelberger took over one of the. It's not like an incredibly difficult job, but it's one of the tougher jobs in the Big 12 at the time. He took over an absolute mess. The current coach, the coach at Iowa State before TJ Otzelberger,
now coaching in my conference,
is now a Missouri Valley coach, and they finished 9-11 this year.
The one before him is at Nebraska.
Yes, and Iowa State has had some great coaches, but like Greg McDermott didn't win at Iowa State. And Fred Hoiberg did not reach the heights that I think TJ Otzelberger has now reached. And when Fred Hoiberg was winning at Iowa State, I think everyone in the country thought he was one of the 5 or 10 best coaches in the sport. I think TJ Otzelberger, he took over a team the first year, preseason KenPom rank 113. Final KenPom rank 43. Second year, preseason KenPom rank 62. Final KenPom rank 29. Third year, preseason KenPom rank 31. Final KenPom rank 8. 2 Sweet 16s. They would have had a chance to make the Sweet 16, I think, in that second year if they were fully healthy and a full team.
Who were they missing?
Caleb Grill.
Yeah, he doesn't change that Pitt game.
No, I mean, just that Pitt game was different from the fact that
the most beautiful basketball game I've ever seen.
They were just like, Iowa State was playing bad basketball down the stretch once Grill kind of left. But aside from those 2 wins against Baylor. I just think that like late February when Grill got hurt and then eventually kicked off the team, kind of changed the trajectory of their season. They just owned Baylor. But also with Otzelberger, offense, first year 171, second year 114, last year 52. Getting better. What did we talk about with Tamin Lipsey last year? If he doesn't come back with a 15-foot jumper, it's coaching malpractice.
He had a lot more than a 15-foot jumper.
He came back and shot 39% on like 3.5 threes a game. He's going to be maybe the best point guard in the Big 12 this year.
You could say that.
Just thinking, who's better?
Like, you could argue DeJuan Harris is better than him.
This coming year, I think I would. I mean,
Lipsey was just a sophomore.
Good,
like he should get better.
Harris is good, but yeah, I'm not taking any of these guys right now above Tamin Lipsey.
So, TJ Otzelberger at 8. The justification I have for this is pretty much what you said. I mean, the program continues to improve, and he does do a lot more with less. And he's gotten Iowa State to a point where this kind of you wouldn't rank Iowa State like it's one of the better jobs in the Big 12, and he has made the program to a point where they can go out and recruit a Milan Momcilovic, or even Omaha Blue didn't really work out for them, but players.
They didn't need him to. It didn't matter. They had the defense that he would have brought from. They got it from guys like Trey King, and they got it from guys like Robert Jones. They didn't need it.
I would not put him in a first tier of college basketball coaches right now, simply because there are still offensive shortcomings. I mean, that Illinois game, they were inept and at points, and obviously he's only had 3 years. He was in a tough spot when he took over, but every coach I have above him has at least been to a Final Four. Otzelberger has not yet reached an Elite Eight.
I understand, and I think that there's clear reasoning for why you wouldn't have him higher, but I mean, I'm not sure who I would have him over on this list, but I know the guys under him also have better career resumes, but I think Otzelberger is clearly trending up more so than maybe any other coach in the sport aside from Hurley.
How much further up can Dan Hurley trend?
You see what I mean? He's that's kind of what I mean by that.
Yeah, maybe maybe Amir, who we'll get to in a sec. But
all right, move on.
Okay, so Rick Pitino at 9.
We
Obviously,
talked enough about Pitino.
Yeah, missed the tournament last year, but his team was good. They should have made it. It was BS, and I mean he won 3 straight conference titles at Iona. Whether that was
regular, I mean look at just look at the other teams that had to pick up 12 dudes from the portal, and then look at St. John's.
Yeah.
I mean, look at where Arkansas finished last year.
Phenomenal X's and O's. You've talked about how great of a game manager he is.
Best game manager probably in the sport right now.
All right, and should we move to 10?
Yeah.
All right, 10 wasn't even on my list the first year, but I actually I will admit I covered him for a year and a half, pretty much a year, and covering Tennessee, I learned a lot about what Rick Barnes does as a coach, and there was a level of appreciation that I wasn't at 2 years ago with Rick Barnes. He's number 10 for me now. His defenses are always elite, and Tennessee has not been to a Final Four yet under him. They actually just reached their first Elite Eight under him, but the program is clearly trending in the right direction. He's adjusted from a more defense-oriented team to be better offensively, and I think it's better for the program long term. And he's a great developer.
I just want to say on that note, on this developing note, I'm not sure if it was when Kevin came on this podcast or somewhere else where I listened to him or someone else say it, but I heard the sentence, Rick Barnes has had 2 wing scorers like that in his coaching career, Kevin Durant and Dalton Knecht. Oh. Do you understand how insane that is, that a guy that was playing at Northern Colorado a year ago, you can now put him in the same sentence as Kevin Durant and him alone, and you can say, yeah, sounds about right.
Mm-hmm.
That's how good Rick Barnes and that staff did developing and with Dalton Knecht, and also just being able to change their whole offense around Dalton Knecht.
Yeah. Barnes gets the nod at 10 in large part because the floor of that program has just become unbelievably high. And also, when he got there, that job was terrible.
Donnie Tyndall. Remember him? You know where he is now? Let me see if he's still there. Let me see if he's still there.
but like one of the best coaches in like
Yep,
Tennessee history.
he is the head coach at Chipola College.
Oh God.
He's 54. He was the head coach at Tennessee at age 44.
Like Bruce Pearl is one of the best Tennessee coaches ever, and like
hold on. Donnie Tyndall was the head coach at Tennessee when he was 44. By the time he was 50, he was the head coach at Chipola College.
Jeez. All right.
11.
Are we at the point where like we've gone through the top 10? Should we do in
5 at a time? 5 at a time.
All right. 11, Greg McDermott. 12, Shaka Smart. 13, Amir Abdur-Rahim. 14, Tommy Lloyd. 15, Mick Cronin. Who do you want to talk about here?
Who do you want to talk about?
I want to talk about Amir, but like it's not necessarily what everyone wants to hear.
Talk about Amir.
Dude, Amir went and won a regular season title with an awful program at Kennesaw State. It like just turned it around in 3 years after being like the worst program in Division I. And then first year at South Florida goes and wins the regular season title in like a top 7 or 8 league in the country.
That team started the season 2-4. They lost at home to Maine and Central Michigan. After that, from December 3rd until the end of the regular season, they went 21-2. Their only losses were by 4 and 6 points away. The Tulsa loss was bad, but that was also like the PJ Haggerty game, and they shot 4 for 23 from 3. But South Florida is not an amazing job. Brian Gregory didn't really have a ton of success there. Orlando Antigua didn't have a ton of success there. Stan Heath did a good job pretty much there, but they made the tournament once, really, in that span. And in year 1, Amir Abdur-Rahim won the regular season conference title. Obviously, the job isn't as difficult as it was when it was a Big East job.
Correct. But like, still, like, I don't think they have like a ton
there's
of NIL.
no history.
Like,
well, they have better NIL now than they did a year ago. I think that's probably true.
Tommy Lloyd, real quick, like one of the most disrespected coaches in the country. He's gone 1 seed, 2 seed, 2 seed in 3 years at Arizona.
I had my qualms with Arizona last year. I don't think that means Tommy Lloyd's bad. He's really good.
Yeah, but I mean, the way people talk about Tommy Lloyd, you would think he's like the 30th best coach in the country, 40th best coach in the country. Clearly not the case.
The next, you want to do the next 5?
Yeah, 16 Eric Musselman, 17 Hubert Davis, 18 Dusty May, 19 Brian Dutcher, 20 John Shire.
I like Dusty a lot. Feel like I'd have him maybe in the range a little higher than this.
Yeah,
but
I think like
I think this is a very fair spot. I think I'm very high on him. I probably would have him like 2 or 3 spots higher. I just think his logic makes a lot of sense. The way he kind of inverts his offensive strategy to be his defensive strategy, and the roster constructions have been really fun. I think he has another good roster construction where with a lot of ball handlers, but nobody that's. I don't think there's a Janelle Davis on this next Michigan roster. I also think Janelle Davis was a borderline All-American last year, so it's not like you're going to find a Janelle Davis on the street. He also developed Janelle Davis into an All-American. Nobody knew who he was before he got to Florida Atlantic.
Hubert Davis is one I expect to be higher after next season. Like, he kind of has been up and down, like inconsistent regular season. His first year, missed the tournament. His second year, third year, they get it right. They get a 1 seed. I expect UNC to be really good again, and if they are, he'll be higher next year.
Yeah, Hubert Davis is a good coach.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe like the reason why I'm not like moved by him is like because he's not Roy. Like Roy is one of the greatest coaches ever.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean Hubert's not great. I like Shire. I think he's a great coach.
Yeah, I think like
I don't want like you to just talk all about Shire because we've heard you talk about Shire a lot. But I said this about Shire in March, where it felt like Duke was really improving. And I said it was the second straight year that Duke was playing some of their best basketball down the stretch and just really improving as a team. It was like when they like killed Virginia, or when they pulled away from NC State on the road with that big second half. They were just playing their best basketball later in the season. They were getting better, improving. Kids looked more comfortable. That's the sign of a good coach. Just team that steadily, they were never bad. They had a couple tough games early in the season, but they were never bad. Steadily improve. They had an inflection point. They absolutely had an inflection point in the season. That Baylor game was a very big inflection point, and they passed. They passed their inflection points aside from the North Carolina games, and they lost a road game to a good Wake team.
I'm real quick. I'm going to do this off the top of my head. Take out UConn, 4 traditional blue bloods in the sport: Duke, Kentucky, Kansas, UNC. Since John Shire took over at Duke, so two seasons now, Duke 4 NCAA tournament wins, Kentucky 1, Kansas 3, Kansas 2, and UNC 2. Conference titles: Duke 1, Kentucky 0, UNC 1, Kansas 1. No team outside of Duke from those 4 has gotten to an Elite 8. Like, I bet if you go look at overall records, like, Shire's probably better than Hubert and better than Cal was the last 2 years. Probably definitely not better than South, but like I bet it's closer than people would think. Obviously, South plays in a better league, so there's some truth to that. But I'd like, if I was making like top 10 most underrated coaches in the country, specifically from high major schools, John Shire would be pretty close to the top of that list.
21 to 25.
21, Brad Underwood. 22, Sean Miller. 2023, Grant McCaslin. 2024, Chris Collins. 2025, 23, McCaslin. 24, Collins. 25, Chris Beard.
Love McCaslin and Miller from this segment. These are 2 of my favorite coaches. McCaslin, great defensive guy at North Texas, built a great roster for this coming year at Texas Tech, built a fascinating roster last year at Texas Tech and elevated it offensively, which I wasn't sure he could do. And he did. Defense took a little bit more time last year, but I still think they had good bones.
Yeah.
And he's won a lot of games. Just really good young coach. Miller.
Grant McCaslin. Some of what Grant McCaslin did at North Texas goes into this ranking too.
Sean Miller, in my mind, should be higher.
Wouldn't argue with that. If you wanted to argue that Underwood or Sean Miller was like 8 to 10 spots higher, wouldn't argue with you.
I don't think Sean Miller is like a tier below the McDermotts and Shakas of the world. You look at what he did at Arizona, just consistent winner, made a ton of tournaments. Now you look at year 1 at Xavier and won 27 games, got a 3 seed, and this year they were decimated by injuries that forced us to rank them 15 spots lower like the day that we knew about the injuries a week before the season, basically.
Yeah, he was one of the toughest guys to rank probably because of the unfortunate situation he was in last year.
And he still basically took Quincy Oliveri and turned him into an all Big East player. They were a tough out in a lot of games. They struggled late in the season, but I think they were 26th in KenPom in mid-January, and then the wheels kind of fell off when they got blown out by UConn at XL. But who doesn't get blown out by UConn last year?
Mm-hmm. Anyone else in this tier you want to talk about?
I like Chris Collins a lot, but
Mm-hmm.
how much of this last 2 years' success was having the greatest player in program history?
Mm-hmm.
Now, obviously, he recruited him and developed him.
Yeah.
But he also had him for 5 years, and they couldn't make the tournament in his first 3. They couldn't come close to the tournament in his first 3. I still think he's a great coach, and it's an insanely difficult job. I think they have good bones for the front court next year. The back court is a little interesting.
Agreed. All right. 26, Randy Bennett. 27, Shaheen Holloway. 28, Kyle Smith. 29, Bruce Pearl. 30, Danny Sprinkle.
I'm not sure if I did say this last year, but I must have had Danny Sprinkle as like a pick to click on that list last year. I loved him coming out of Montana State, getting that Utah State job, and here he is at Washington. Go ahead, talk about anybody else.
Yeah, so I think this is 27 through 29. I think people probably have questions about. So Shaheen Holloway at 27 is like, I mean, he took St. Peter's to an Elite 8, which is like one of the worst programs in the country.
Shaheen Holloway won 3 NCAA tournament games at a place that if you passed by their arena on the street, aside from the fact that there would be the noise coming out of their practices with Bashir Mason coaching, because they make a ton of noise in practice, you wouldn't know that it's even a university. You wouldn't know that there's an arena there. It just looks like another city block.
Yeah. And then Kyle Smith is a guy that has kind of gotten blood from a stone at like 3 different programs now. One at Columbia.
Columbia's best coach since the 50s. San Francisco's best coach since the 80s. Washington State, the only other guys to make the tournament there are basically Hall of Famers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, Stanford's going to be a tough job for him, but he's done it at hard places before. And then Bruce Pearl at 29. Like, I think Bruce Pearl's situation is very similar to like what Nate Oates started with it. Like, not Bruce Pearl started in a very similar place that like Rick Barnes did at Tennessee and Nate Oates did at Alabama. Like traditionally football schools that like really didn't care much about basketball. And he's done a great job kind of getting talent there and making the program matter, similar to how Oates and Barnes did. The only difference is like those guys have better results than Pearl does. Like Pearl has obviously the Final Four appearance, but outside of that, no other second weekend appearances in like 8 years at Auburn or something like that.
I think it's been 10.
Is it 10? Like
10 years.
Yeah, I mean, like my gripe with Pearl is like, how many times can you go back like through his Auburn career and like they were eliminated in the NCAA tournament by a team that was seated lower than them?
31-35.
31, Darren DeVries. 32, Will Wade. 33, Jerome Tang. 34, Tom Izzo. 35, Chris Jans.
You were about to not have Tom Izzo on this list.
Yeah, that would have been a mistake.
Tom Izzo has made the NCAA tournament every year since forever, basically.
I mean, they
Just
won
like-
the title and they won the title in 2000. Have they missed since?
They haven't missed the tournament since 97.
Okay.
And they've been a double-digit seed like once or twice. And I know these last couple of years, they haven't been very elite, but just consistently program rank on Ken Pom is 5. They're always good.
Yeah, I mean, last 4 years they've gone like, I don't know the exact seed, but like 8, 9 games.
There's a reason why every single year we just say, "Oh yeah, Michigan State. Oh, they'll figure it out.
They'll win a tournament game." Even though we didn't pick them.
They won a tournament game this year. We both picked them to not win one.
Yep.
The last time that they lost in the round of 64, Middle Tennessee State.
Yeah. I mean, technically they lost in 2021 in the play-in game, but
Yeah, but that's the play-in game. It's not the round of 64.
I think like Tom Izzo still like his. You can say what you want, like his roster construction.
They also lost the play-in game to a team that made the Final Four.
Yeah, they did do. They are also up like 10.5. But Tom Izzo
they were up 14 in that game.
So Izzo, like, obviously tournament still gets there, still wins games in the tournament, but like the downside with him is like his roster construction the last couple of years has been confusing. His lineup construction has been arguably even more confusing. I would say Tom Izzo is still a good basketball coach, but his days of having a chance to win a national title are probably over.
Okay. Anyone else on this? It's your list. Like you should be dictating the conversation here.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, like DeVries at 31. Like this is a guy. I think I ranked him last year. I better have. Yeah, 36, and then they go and win another Missouri Valley title. Like I think people's view of Darren DeVries, like nationally, like from like casuals, are like he's choked in the NCAA tournament twice in the last two years. But
he got Drake to the NCAA tournament twice.
And like
in 2 years.
There's a lot of it that like he does have Tucker, but like he did get to an NCAA tournament and got an at-large bid without Tucker, like before he got there.
They were and the year that Tucker didn't make the tournament, they were like 5 points away from making the tournament against
I'm still a believer in what Jerome Tang does. Chris Jans is like made 3 straight NCAA tournaments if you go back to New Mexico State.
Yeah, and they would have made it in 2020. They made it in 19. They made it in 18.
Nearly beat Auburn in 19.
I picked them.
Airball to 3 at the buzzer.
I picked
All right.
them.
Will Wade, 32. Obviously his job is like probably one of the easiest.
But I mean that job is easy because of who he is.
He's made it easy.
I mean, like it's easy because it's Will Wade, and the boosters are behind that, and boosters want to boost Will Wade.
36, Josh Schertz. 37, Pat Kelsey. 38, Mitch Henderson. 39, Jim Larinaga. 40, Jamie Dixon. Where do I want to start here?
Jamie
I'll
Dixon's a
talk
little
about.
lower than you've had him
Let's start with shirts because
hold
like
on. Jamie Dixon's a little lower than you've had him in the past.
yeah,
Still think the job he's done at TCU is underrated.
Larinaga was 7 last year. He's now 39.
They were awful last year.
Huh?
They were just awful last year.
Yeah, they were. And like, yeah, he did like he made.
I do think there's a sense of like the rest of the country kind of catching on to what Larinaga is trying to do at Miami now.
I think there's just a sense that like the last 2 years, even though they had good runs in the NCAA tournament and like historic runs, like the regular season in 2022 was like not that good. And then, yeah, they won the ACC title in 2023, but like it was as down of an ACC as I can remember. And they got a 5 seed. Henderson just constantly wins games at Princeton. Shirts obviously like hasn't made an NCAA tournament yet, but like he's well known at this point as one of the best X's and O's coaches in the country. And like,
I mean, he's only coached at the Division I level for 3 years, so I don't think it's an indictment to say he hasn't made the NCAA tournament. He took over a program that was in a rough spot, immediately redeveloped it in his image, and by year 2, they were the number 1 2-point offense in the country and went 13-7. Last year they went 17-3. They won the regular season title for the first time in how long?
Oh my god, dude, I don't even know. It was forever.
Like since 2000 or something?
Yeah, it was like early 2000s.
And
go for it.
And just X's and O's are so good. He's a basketball sicko. I think he's going to do a great job at St. Louis, and I'll let you talk a little more about him.
Yeah, I mean, I just like expect him to succeed at St. Louis. If they're good again, he'll move up. I guess if he's good again, he'll move up. But like, this is a guy that like, you want to talk about like most likely coaches to like in this cycle be at a school 1 year and move up again the following year. Like you've mentioned Preston Spradlin a bunch. Josh Schertz is right at the top of that conversation too.
If you told me that you wanted to rank Josh Schertz 25th on this list, I'd say okay.
Yeah.
I think he might be like just the smartest X's and O's offensive mind in the sport, just based on how good his offenses were at the D2 level, how good his offenses have been at the D1 level. And I think they're going to add some new elements this coming year at St. Louis because they have a different type of roster.
Kelsey back-to-back CAA titles at Charleston. Dixon at 40 is kind of just like course correction. Like I still really like him. I just probably had him too high the last couple of years.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that.
TCU is a really hard job, and he's made 3 straight NCAA tournaments there.
Yep.
All right. 41 Fran McCaffrey, 42 Steve Peichel, 43 Matt Langle, 44 John Becker, 45 Todd Golden. I'm going to start here with Fran McCaffrey because like I did get a comment about him, and like I understand that like Fran McCaffrey is not the most likable guy. Like he gets teed up a lot, and like he's gotten suspended and tossed out of games, and like very clearly gets angry like more than a typical coach would. But I mean, it's Iowa. Like it's a hard job. His development speaks for itself. They had an All-American 4 straight years, right? Yeah, because Garza was a 2-time All-American.
No, wait. Chris was like close to an All-American.
Okay, well, 3 straight years, and then a borderline wanting Chris Murray. Like they had a down year.
Was Chris an All-American?
I'm putting this on you to research. But like Fran's development's exceptional. I think you can get a pass for like miss like the tournament, like still
Chris
being a
was
bubble.
not an All-American, which really he wasn't.
His numbers were
surprising.
I feel like his numbers were probably good enough that you could have made the case for sure.
Okay, he wasn't. He was like the third best player in the Big Ten that year. It was like Edie, sorry, third or fourth. Yeah, it was like Edie, TJD, Pickett, and him.
Yeah, but I mean, his like with the way Fran has developed and the amount of NCAA tournament appearances he's had at Iowa, even in just the last couple of years. Like he gets a pass after having 4 straight years All-Americans, and like they weren't even that bad. Like this year, they just like they were a bubble team for a lot of the year.
They were young.
Mm-hmm.
They were young.
And
they
like,
had a lot of.
I mean, they did have the Big Ten freshmen. Like they had the Big Ten freshman of the year. So like how surprised would you be? Huh?
Did he end up winning it?
I thought he won it. I know he won Big Ten freshman of the week.
He won it. He won it. He won it.
Like how surprised would you be?
I feel like.
How surprised would you be if
I have like a false memory of Christie winning it, but
Christie was also really good. But like, how surprised would you be if Owen Freeman was like a potential Big Ten Player of the Year candidate this year?
I mean, I don't think he's going to be their best player.
I mean, you sure?
Peyton Sanford's going to be their best player,
probably. But
I wouldn't be surprised if Owen Freeman is the Big 10 Player of the Year his junior year.
You want to talk about Peichel? Because I know he's like one of your guys.
Like I've talked about Peichel a lot, just good culture.
Yeah,
I mean, he just brought 2 5-stars to Rutgers now, and this is an inflection point for him as a coach. Like, I'm not gonna say like I don't think there's like a ton of downside to his performance this season of like, oh, it could send him like down the list, but he could shoot up if he proves that like the offense can be better than it has been, like design wise.
Sorry, I was just reading. Kyle Tucker tweeted something funny.
Oh, must be a day that ends in Y.
I gotta read this. Kentucky. So Dick Wise tweets: Kentucky freshman point guard Rob Dillingham will join Reed Sheppard in the green room at the NBA draft, and he quoted it and said,
"Wonder if it's bench
seating."
That's funny. That's really funny.
Which is actually great because we're about to get to that guy. Langel and Becker just like consistently win their league, but like the leagues aren't very good. So like, you know,
those guys are really tough to rank. Like if you put those guys like 27, or if you put them like 77, like whatever. 77 is too low, but
Todd Golden at 45, like maybe
a little Colgate,
maybe a little ambitious, but like
I also agree with having Langel over Becker. I think Colgate is a much more difficult job than Vermont.
It is, just
relatively speaking.
There have been other good teams in the America East over the years. Like UMass Lowell,
I also, and I mean Stony Brook was solid in the past at times. Obviously UMBC won a tournament game. There's been solid competition for. I mean Albany had some good years.
Like I don't think there's been like a consistent.
But that's not an indictment on Becker. It's more just like. Vermont was good before he got there. Mm-hmm. Like Tom Brennan won there, Mike Lonergan won there, and those are good coaches. Those guys were good coaches.
All right. 46 John Calipari, 47 Micah Shrewsbury, 48 James Jones, 49 Ryan Odom, 50 Mark Pope. Let's start with the obvious.
John Calipari at 46.
Can I read my list?
A little low.
Can I read my list?
Yeah, huh? Go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm pulling this up. This is a list of every coach that has beaten a single-digit seed in the NCAA tournament since John Calipari last did. Folks, buckle in. Here we go. Mike Krzyzewski, Bruce Pearl, Tom Izzo, Chris Beard, Tony Bennett, Lon Kruger, Jeff Bowles, Will Wade, Mick Cronin, Joe Golding, Mark Turgeon, Greg Gard, Grant McCaslin, Paul Mills, Porter Moser, Wayne Tinkle, Jim Boeheim, Steve Peichel, Mark Few, Andy Enfield, Dana
Stop,
Altman.
stop. Wayne Tinkle, Jim Boeheim is just
Elite combo. Dana Altman, Juwan Howard, Leonard Hamilton, Scott Drew, Eric Musselman, Penny Hardaway, Chris Jans, Mike Bray, Hubert Davis, Shaheen Holloway, Jamie Dixon, Greg McDermott, Chris Mooney, TJ Otzelberger, Jim Larinaga, Matt Painter, Tommy Lloyd, Kelvin Sampson, Jay Wright, Bill Self, Kevin Willard, Bob Ritchie, Mitch Henderson, Tobin Anderson, Dusty May, Jeff Capel, Micah Shrewsbury, Nate Oates, Rick Barnes, Jerome Tang, Dan Early, Brian Dutcher, Rodney Terry, Chris Collins, James Jones, Keith Dambrot, Bryce Drew, Buzz Williams, Mark Byington, Kevin Keats, Greg Campy, Tad Boyle, Danny Sprinkle, Brad Brownell, Brad Underwood, John Shire. 66 coaches have beaten a single-digit seed in the NCAA tournament since John Calipari last did it. Why are we still ranking this guy in top 20s?
Homer Drew has 2 sons with more NCAA tournament wins against single-digit seeds since COVID than
Duke's done it with multiple coaches.
Dude, Homer Drew's done it with multiple sons.
Texas Tech did it with Chris Beard. Had Chris Beard leave for Texas.
Well, Chris Beard was...
Hold on. Chris Beard did it at Texas Tech in 2019 after John Calipari did it. Chris Beard then left for Texas. We had a coronavirus pandemic. Then Mark Adams came in, nearly beat a single-digit seed, got fired for saying something racist, and then hired another coach that did it in North Texas.
I do think this is a little low, though, just considering what Calipari is as a college basketball coach. I don't think he's an elite coach anymore, but he's still putting together really, really good rosters.
Can I read one more list?
Yeah, sure.
This is a list of notable conferences with more or the same amount of NCAA tournament wins in the last 4 seasons than John Calipari. Ivy, 3, also didn't play basketball one of those years. Mac, 3, has won against Calipari. NEC, 1. I'm not counting playing games, by the way.
If
even
you're
though
counting playing games, NEC has 3.
Even though I know they're important for these conferences. NEC 1, WAC 2, MAC with 1A 1. Summit 2.
Were you about to say regular MAC for the one with 1A?
I almost did, but I corrected myself.
Oh man, that would have been
You would have killed me. Summit 2, SoCon 1, Horizon 1, and it's against John Calipari. So
again, basically the whole argument against John Calipari is that his tournament success has been bad recently, which
that is
I think
nice way to put it.
Which I think kind of hides the fact that he's gotten a 2 seed, 6 seed, 3 seed the last 3 years. Like, not saying that that's still like underperforming at Kentucky.
I've thought about it in the last day or so. John Calipari will never leave the top 50 as long as he's still recruiting the way he does.
Yeah. Well, he left the top 50 until I told you to put him in.
Yeah, that's why I said I thought about it the last day or so. By the way, I don't often take victory laps, but on this show, but I had him 28 2 years ago and got absolutely ridiculed for it. And since then, he's done absolutely nothing in terms of NCAA tournament success. Congrats, you beat a coach that Sam Fetterman has now called a gimmick multiple times on this podcast, and it was completely checked out when they played them.
I'm sorry. That's so good. John Calipari though is the opposite of a gimmick, not in a he's the greatest ever way. It's just I don't it's there's nothing fake about what he does. His success isn't fake. It's just like not as good as you would want it to be.
Well,
So if anything, he's a gimmick is like it feels fake, but it is real. Calipari, like it feels real, but it's fake.
I mean, his success, like his
But like
success isn't.
like what I'm saying, like every single time someone would talk about Kentucky last year, it's like, oh, they have this Final Four potential. Oh,
They
because it
never
felt
did.
real. It felt real. Like it was fake, but it felt real. So imagine like what it could be like if it is real.
His success
And
isn't fake. It's just out of a time frame that is like relevant to these rankings.
yeah, Mark Pope is the next natural discussion point. I think we were he just wasn't on our radar last year. Like we didn't know enough about him.
I think Mark Pope is a tough coach to evaluate because one, the BYU job's hard, and like he did make the NCAA tournament a couple times there, and I'm counting 2020 because they were really good. But at the same time, like I think Mark Pope is like people are like misinformed when they're talking about him. Like he doesn't have this like
say the thing.
Say the thing.
Yeah, say the thing.
Mark Pope isn't like this coach that like is like super reliant on like 3-pointers. Like that isn't what he was the like 4 years before last year.
Mark Pope is not Mark Pope doesn't have a quote unquote system. He has a really forward thinking brain that builds a roster and a system around each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he's great. I just don't know if what he's done, I just don't know if I can say I think he's going to be really good at Kentucky. I can't look at Mark Pope and say, yeah, they definitely made the right choice running Cal out of town for this guy.
Yeah. I also like
I would have him. I might have.
I'll say two more things, and like one is negative, one isn't meant to be negative, but could come off that way, and I'll save that one for a second. The first thing is like I think there is something to be said, like no matter what the talent level is at BYU, that like they were a 6 seed twice under him in the NCAA tournament and got like ran off the floor both times. And then the other thing is that
the linchpin of their offense was playing with a broken.
That is true. But they still got run off the floor by a team that finished 6th in the A10.
I agree. I also think
the other thing I would say
the median offense.
Huh?
Is this the median offense thing?
No, it's that there's a reason like coaches get jobs from mid-major programs and like lower tier programs and move up to like really good programs and fail. Like coaching at BYU is a lot different than coaching at Kentucky. Like they'll like I want to believe that Kentucky fans, if they like get like an 8 seed this year or a 9 seed, will like be like, yeah, like this is fine. Like he had to throw together a roster last minute. We'll give him. He obviously gets some time, but like it's Kentucky. Like you're gonna have pressure from the moment you step on campus. And like coaching,
he walked into his opening press conference in front of 22,000 people, holding a national championship trophy ahead. He lost any plausible deniability in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
He lost any ability to say, all right, we're going to like take our time. And I just don't like the idea that Kentucky fans are going. I just think that once the season starts and they're not this well-oiled machine of perfection, I think Kentucky fans
you don't
are going.
say Kirk Kriza's their starting point guard.
I just think Kentucky fans will have been telling themselves that they want like more experienced. They've been telling themselves like what Cal was doing wasn't working. It's not like what Mark Pope is doing is like definitely going to be an upgrade from that.
My thing is like Kentucky fans like will
And
say,
I think Mark Pope's a great coach. I think he's smart as a whip in terms of his basketball acumen. He's a Kentucky guy, knows what it's like to be there and win there. So, and he was successful at BYU. But if Kentucky had Kentucky had a better season by NCAA tournament seeding by most standards, aside from a bunch of analytics, but throughout the year, people thought Kentucky was better than BYU. The committee thought Kentucky was better than BYU. And Kentucky fans ran Cal out of town. Be patient, because it'll take some time with Mark Pope. I think I just need to see proof of concept, and proof of concept could be a lot of different things. And I think he's great. I think he's a good coach. I just don't know if he's going to be a good Kentucky coach.
I mean, yeah, if like I had to guess, like if you put a gun to my head and asked me, will Mark Pope win a national title at Kentucky? The obvious answer would be no. That's not to say you can't do it or even won't do it, but like Kentucky is, because of the way that the fan base acts, Kentucky is probably the most high pressure job in college basketball.
Yep.
Real quick, like Shrews, like I'm keeping on this list for now. Like, obviously tough year, but like we knew they were gonna have a tough year.
It's a tough place to recruit.
Ryan Odom, we can come back to this in a couple years. Maybe even more than that, but I'm fairly certain Ryan Odom will be in the top 20 at some point on this list.
Just really smart guy.
Mm-hmm. Some honorable mentions, and I'll do these all at once. There's 10 of them. Nico Medved at Colorado State, Mark Byington, who's now at Vanderbilt by way of James Madison, Bucky McMillan at Samford, Kim English at Providence, Steve Lutz at Oklahoma State by way of Western Kentucky and formerly Texas A&M Corpus Christi, Tony Bennett at Virginia, David Riley at Washington State by way of Eastern Washington, Drew Valentine at Loyola Chicago, Brian Wardle at Bradley, and Lamont Paris at South Carolina. I don't want to like go into really detail on any of these guys, but like these are 10 good coaches, and that's like one of the points that I want to hit home every year. There are more than 50 good coaches in the country. There are more than 60 good coaches in the country. There are coaches who I would have loved to put on this list, but I just quite can't yet.
Some
and
picks
I hope people realize that like I put 60 coaches on here, including the honorable mentions. That's like what?
There's
top 17%.
There's 304 other Division I coaches, and probably like 165 of them are good. Probably more than that. There's probably 250 good coaches in the sport at the Division I level, and even the coaches that aren't good are still like really smart, really smart. And then at the D2 level, there's hundreds: JUCO, NAIA, D3, high school assistants. There's thousands of just amazing basketball coaches out there. Speaking of amazing basketball coaches out there,
you gonna go watch Joe Mazzulla?
Ben McCollum.
Oh, okay.
A different former D2 coach.
Yeah.
I think he's
I'm
tremendous.
I'm excited to have him in our league.
Preston Spradlin, who was a former future MVC head coach.
Shame.
for about 3 days.
Shame.
And then they
like,
hired Konzo
not
Martin.
that's not any disrespect to Scott Nagy, who
Oh, right. He was going to be the
who I'm
SIU,
excited to
not
have in
the.
our league as well.
Yeah, Nagy's good. I'm not sure he's a pick to click though. John Jacobs, just assistants for Scott Drew and Mark Few. Like, who else can claim that?
I love that you included Jacobs on this because, like, I think he's good too. But like, there is a select group of people that realize how important assistant coaches are, and like we talked about a bunch about UConn's assistants on this show already, so I don't want to just keep the line moving. But like, Jacobs would be in my top like 75 if I extended that out.
I think that like some people on Twitter, in like the whole their search season mindset is like, you got to hire like guys that have won at lower levels. Yeah, I mean, obviously you want to hire guys that have won, but I don't think there's anything wrong with hiring an assistant from a program that is just a consistent winner. A guy who's been around winning, a guy who gets a lot of credit from their coaching staff for winning, because Scott Drew's not keeping him around. Mark Few's not keeping him around if he's not helping out.
Sam, are there 363 teams in Division I now?
364.
364 teams. 363 of those coaches have been an assistant coach at some point. Figure out.
Hold on. Oh! It's Doug Gottlieb.
Yep. I believe. I mean, I don't count like I don't count the fact that he may have been like an assistant coach for like his son's mid-level 4th grade B team.
Hold on. I need to see if this is correct.
I mean, John Calipari was a former Pitt assistant, as we did well know.
I feel like some low major guy out there has not been an assistant somewhere.
I mean, it's possible.
I mean, just like looking at some guys that were like longtime assistants. Brian Dutcher was
Michigan forever.
Was the associate head coach for Steve Fisher for 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
For 30 years. Like, that's insane. Like, high level coaches have been assistants for a long time.
And how long was Hubert Davis with Roy at UNC?
I'm not sure.
I don't think it was like that long, but like 10 years.
All right, you want to take us home?
Yeah. If you came to hear about dude, this gets me every time. I can't believe we say this. If you came to hear about Tyler Self and where he's working, you came to the right place. If you came to hear about 363 out of 364 Division I head coaches that were assistant coaches, you came to the right place. If you came to hear about Caleb Grill, who is officially returning to Mizzou next year.
Really?
Yeah, it came out.
When did that come out?
Yesterday. Mizzou officially announced it yesterday.
Really?
But if you came to hear about what he's up to, hopefully practicing for next year, you came to the right place. This is Season 5, Episode 6 of Brackets, Bubbles, and Bid Stealers. Special thanks to Appalachian State head coach Dustin Kerns for joining us. We'll see you next time.